Today is February 22nd,
Yes.
2023, and I'm here with World War II veteran Fred A. Roble.
Yes.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted
And that was the year of
1943.
Okay. So, where did you go for training?
Well, Great Lakes.
Great Lakes. Okay.
Yeah, I was there about close to 7 weeks because they were just pushing us through a couple thousand a day. We didn't get the full training. We couldn't. I think all the reason why we're there is so we'd get all our vaccination and smallpox.
Mm-hmm.
But from there, we got to go home a week, and then from there we had to go back, and then from there on, we got on the train to go to California. And we was in this camp for two weeks, laying around waiting what they're gonna do with us. So they put us on a bus and they shipped us to Oakland, California.
Mm-hmm.
And we had all our gear, seat bags and that, and we was on the dock, and we were gonna get aboard the ship. Well, it took a little while for things, you know, and so we finally got aboard the ship, and I'm 18 years old. I only weighed about 130 pounds, and your seat bag with all your things in it, and then your hammock, your mattress,
Mm-hmm.
and you aboard this ship. It was just like a plank from the dock up to the ship.
Mm-hmm.
You're carrying that heavy load on your back. You're going not straight, you're going up a little bit like that, and it was so wobbly I thought I was going to fall down. But we made it okay, and we were there, and we took off and going under the Golden Gate Bridge, but they all made us go down below. No person on top deck because they're spies. Spies are after troop ships.
Yeah.
Because that's the ones that they want to get, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So after we were out at sea, we got to go top deck and all that. So I was on that, the second day, the waters were choppy. There's no storm or anything, but it's choppy. And I got seasick, among others. And that seasick, your chest, you go to the side, you try to vomit, throw up, nothing comes out, and you're worse, that's gonna break, that's gonna burst. It was, you wanted to die, seasick, it was terrible. Finally got over that. There was happened to a lot of guys.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Did you do any extra training? Or
no, see, some people, they would send to schools, machinists and like a signalman, which when I got on the ship, they called me up to learn to be a signalman. Some of them guys got to go to school, I didn't. When I got on the ship at Pearl Harbor, I was on 2 days, those guys were wandering around, about 20 of us, what they're gonna do with this. So one second day, they called me up to the bridge. And I talked to this first class signalman, and they needed someone, another one, to learn to be a signalman, which you would be you're a second class seaman, you was a striker. That means if you was going to be a radio man, a radar man, or a signalman, a quartermaster, you're a striker.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to learn on your own. They gave you the book, things and all that to learn the flags, and I had to learn Morse code. I had to learn semaphore and flag hoists. So in other words, so that's what I had to do every day.
Okay.
And so merchant marine tankers would come alongside and fill our ship with diesel fuel and high octane gas and lube oil. When we were out at sea, the ship's carrier, battleship, cruiser, destroyer would come alongside, and with the booms that would carry these, attached to these, the hoses would be attached, and they'd go alongside
Mm-hmm.
and attach the fuel hose to the ship alongside to fuel that ship. So that, and we'd be going out 2.5 months before we'd come into Ulithi. Our port was in Ulithi, the Western Caroline Islands,
Mm-hmm.
and that was our home port. We never got to come back to the States, and so we'd go back to port, reprovision ship. Other merchant tankers would come and fill us up. In a couple days, not more than a week, and out at sea we'd go. 2 months, sometimes almost 3 months. And we would meet the fleet. Quartermasters would, and the navigator on the charts, that we'd meet the fleet at certain longitude and latitude. On that certain day, there they were on the horizon. It's America. That's how it worked all the way through the time I was on the ship. We met the fleet, and so many times the fuel in the carrier, being up on a bridge, and I was on eye level with the deck of the carrier, and this pilot would have his plane and he'd wave his arm and off he'd go. Yeah, that was at full throttle when they would take off. Back then it wasn't jets, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have mail. When we'd come back to Ulithi, they'd be mail. Of course, I didn't get much mail. And because one time they had a fleet tug. We were gone out so long, they had a fleet tug come out to give us mail. Oh, and the waters was a little choppy, and I felt sorry for those guys on that fleet tug. They had a small crew, and it was going like this, and but they were used to it. They're talking about later on. I was on almost 2 years. Later on, close to the end of the war, they talk about balloons.
Mm-hmm.
Above us was one of these balloons. The Japanese figured out the wind current and that.
The Fugo balloons, that's what they call them?
The balloons, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And our escorts or the fleet would be nearby and they'd shoot it down. It carried incendiary bombs, or one hit state of Washington near school kids. Another one went to Michigan, and after that, they would shoot them down, and the Japs thought that's not getting anywhere with something like that, so they must have stopped it. But
Well, there was one instance where they found one of those balloons and actually killed 5 people.
that's it, yeah. Was that in the state of Washington?
I thought it was Georgia or California. I can't remember.
Oh, okay. But also, I was working alongside of, after I got out of the Navy, I was talking to this one Army guy. He was stationed in San Francisco, and he had where they would look for incoming enemy planes and things, and they would spot those balloons, and they'd send a plane to shoot it down. So this thing that's going on now, I don't know, that's crazy, but anyway.
Yeah.
So we would we had 4 escorts. We had 4 destroyers all the time. Sometimes a small carrier. A CV is a large carrier. CV is a medium, and no CVL is a middle carrier. CVE is a small carrier. Sometimes they'd be in front of us, and once we'd have a cruiser like the old Detroit, 4-stacker, but always with these 4 destroyers all the time. And the one destroyer off our starboard bow, that was the commander. He's the one that put up flag hoists, and we'd have to watch for that all the time and put them. And I'd put the flag hoists up 3/4, and then the other signalman that's on this binocular. And when he yelled when he said, I'm forgetting things. Well, it was 3/4 up, and then I'd have to put it all the way up. And so we'd wait and keep an eye on that destroyer, and when they would bring it down, then I would have to bring it down. And then the deck officer, whether it was a turn signal or what, at that instant, because we weren't alone, there was other tankers with us. So, well, that's routine stuff.
So when did you get onto your ship, is it Sabine?
What?
So when did you get onto your ship, the Sabine? Like, when you arrived in the atoll? Or the islands?
Ulithi?
Yeah, the Ulithi atoll.
We didn't get to go anywhere. We had to stay on the ship. And when you're at port, well, I was with the communications. That's quartermaster, signalman, radio and guys, and radar. And we'd have to assemble on the deck below when we were in port, just to be accounted for. And then after that, we didn't do much at all, except the guys on the 1st and 2nd division, the working division, they had work to do on the main decks and things. But and also when we were all equipped and all that, before we would take out to sea, a battleship Washington would come alongside, and some of them. But as the Ulithi was a large area, north and south so many ships were in there. I'd count sometimes 7 carriers when we were at anchor. And so I got to go aboard the South Dakota. They had church services, and I got to go on the motor launch one time down in South Dakota. It was fun. They'd be at the stern of the ship, the service, church service. But a couple of us guys, we got up amidships, and we want to go up to the bow and walk around them big guns. And we walked all the way around and then went out. We were filling the New Jersey. Yeah, we filled the Iowa. There was the big 4 battleships. Iowa class, New Jersey, Missouri, and Wisconsin. We didn't field the Wisconsin. We filled New Jersey, and one time on New Jersey was Admiral Halsey. He came out and he stood there and he just looked at us. And not too long, because one of the messengers, Marine messenger, came out with an envelope, gave to him, and he had to go back to his cabin. But things you get to see. But
Did you ever have any encounters with submarines?
one day, evening, I was going to my bunk, and I heard like someone, like a sledgehammer, hitting the side of the ship, boom, 3 times. It must have, the destroyers must have, I don't know, probably was a mistake, something.
Friendly fire?
And that was it. I mean, they didn't call us up for general quarters or not.
Oh.
It was a mistake, or maybe they thought there was a whale out there. Or I did see 2 whales from time to time, yeah. But anyway, before I got on the ship, see, the ship was commissioned 1940,
Mm-hmm.
so there was guys on it in 1940 on, and it was when Pearl Harbor was bombed, it was there with the Neosho. But the Sabine left for the States when it was being, but these guys, older guys, and I had stories about, they did fuel a submarine. That was in maybe 1942 or 42 or 1, but or 42. Yeah, they did fuel a submarine one time. I heard that. And the ship was in. I got on the ship when the things were going. We were on the offensive then, in the Marshall Islands outside of Pearl Harbor were the first islands that they conquered, and instead of going back to Pearl Harbor to get reloaded, we'd go to Wetumpka, Majuro in the Marshall Islands, and then after the Marshall Islands was the Marianas Islands, that's Guam, Tinian, and Saipan. We were in on that, and we went right up and I could see the island real good. And one time there was and they were still fighting there, and there was we slowed up, and there was a Japanese in the water, blown up body. And our escorts went there and picked it up, weighted it down, threw it back in the water. But after that, then the Caroline Islands were taken, so that those islands spread out about 100 miles. Island of Truk was the Pearl Harbor, Japanese Pearl Harbor at that time. Yeah. And as they took the other islands, but they didn't take Truk. They quarantined it. And they bombed the heck out of it. And then on Western Carolina, we were at the way western part. Truk was at the eastern part in the Pacific. On the western was the Ulysses, and that was our port of call all the time. Until the end of the war, we'd go all the way up. Philippines, we were then at Peleliu, south of us islands. Then of course Okinawa, liberation of the Philippines, that was sort of, we went across the equator into Admiralty Islands that was already taken. And as we was going in, it was so hot. No air conditioning, And the water was like glass. And we dropped anchor, the other ships was there. We were there a couple of days, but 8 o'clock in the morning, you have the flag raising.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of lackadaisical. We didn't go. So Admiral Halsey happened to be there, and he sent out messages, and he sent out a message, and it wasn't too kind of a message. Get your stuff moved, no lackadaisical, get that flag up like it's supposed to go. I always remember something like that. Of course, when we went in, equator, I had to be initiated. They initiated us guys because we got to be a shellback. We got a certificate. But so Okinawa, you can't forget something like that. Because we, the kamikazes, you know, we were going into Karamoreto, that's a group of islands just south of the Okinawa, and as we were going in, we relieved one of the tankers, Tallulah, and a bomb dropped on that. And because that's when the suicide bombers, planes were, but we were there, and that's the first time I seen our ship open up on an enemy. At the kamikaze plane, they opened the fire. Not too long, it didn't happen too long, but you know, so.
Were you in the Battle of Lake T Gulf?
Yeah, the liberation of 14 of the Philippines. We were there along fueling the ships. Yeah.
Do you remember any of the ships you fueled? Because the most famous one is the Johnson, or something like that.
You know, I didn't pay any attention to the name. See, on the port side, we'll fuel the big ships. On the starboard side was destroyers and destroyer escorts.
Okay.
We'd be fueling at the same time. It'd take about three destroyers to fuel while we're doing a battleship or a carrier. Of course, they're bigger.
Okay.
But as the war went on, you've heard maybe of the 5 Sullivan brothers that went down with the
USS
cruiser
Sullivan.
Juno.
Yeah, Juno.
New ships are coming out there, and they named the destroyer Sullivan. It came alongside.
Yeah. Wow.
That we had to. Other instances, he didn't pay much attention, but when he seen the number on the bow, I know. Oh, I know all the numbers and stuff like that. That ships, yeah, I could.
Did you ever fuel the USS New Mexico?
No.
Okay. Because I interviewed a guy last year that was on the New Mexico, and he was on off the coast of Okinawa. He was off the coast of Okinawa where his ship got hit by a kamikaze.
Yeah. No. I forget the names of them now. But
do you remember how many ships you saw get hit by kamikazes? Do you remember how many ships you saw get hit by kamikazes?
No, I don't know. But when we were at Karamoreto at nighttime, you could see the flares dropping on the island. I think that we do that just to keep them awake or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, but but after the war was over, and we were headed for Tokyo Bay. That's where MacArthur would be aboard the Missouri. Well, there were so many ships in there, the harbor master wouldn't let us in. So we had to stand off at Sagami Bay, and we waited there till it was over, and we went in. In the meantime, I took a picture of the Mount Fujiyami. That's in that area. I took
cool.
right through the porthole. We just,
How did you feel being a part of being near the surrender? How they were surrendering signing the peace treaty?
Well, we were just standing off, and we couldn't see it, but it was going on. And then we got to go in, and then I got to go. They let us go ashore, and we drew straws, and I got to go on, and we got to Yokohama. Well, the Jap Navy base was there. Then Yokohama was all bombed out, and Tokyo was the, several miles, and so you'd always go with you never went alone, you went with another guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to Tokyo, and it was all bombed out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We went up in like a 12-story building, which was the highest building. They didn't have skyscrapers back then. That would be a skyscraper, 12. Up to what I'm thinking, yeah. But anyway, looked around and that. But when we were at Ulithi, there was an island, there were little islands around, and there was one that was set aside for the Navy guys or whoever for recreation. We got to go on a boat. They'd give you 2 cans of beer. I think it was from Australia, so, but I didn't drink beer. And they'd go ashore, and they would play ball and stuff, and I didn't. So a couple of us guys, we'd get coconuts and crack them, and you'd have a knife sometimes on you. I don't know how I got to have a knife, on the thing. One of the guys would swap things,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'd crack the oak, and they'd get the inner top shell and break that, and then we'd have a rock or something, or cut a hole at the end of the coconut and drink the milk out, or crack it and eat some of the white meat. That's it. And I went swimming. I wanted to make sure I went swimming in the Pacific. I didn't care for it. It's salty water. These inland lakes, but you're light in the water. When it was a difference of swimming in a ocean than it is in a lake.
Were you scared of like sharks?
Well, no, because it was like in a lagoon. They wouldn't let us I was on the leeward side.
Mm-hmm.
On the windward side with the big waves and stuff. And there was waves, and I didn't want to mess around there. But maybe if you were in that part, there might have been, I don't know. Oh, 2 different times when we were in Ulithi, the captain let us guys jump off the ship to swim. But they had to put a boat with a boatswain.
Yeah.
And a gunner's mate with a gun around by the ship on one side in case of sharks.
Uh-huh.
But they wouldn't get me to go.
Yeah. Did you ever fuel the USS Indianapolis?
Twice.
Wow.
It was a beautiful ship. I know all about that, the story and all that. Yeah, I think it had a sister ship with the same kind. Was it the Portland or I forget? But yeah, we filled it Indianapolis twice.
Wow.
Yeah, and well, I could name so many other ships. I'm forgetting all that now, but the carriers, especially the big carriers. When you'd fuel a ship, the bosun would have an air gun.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a marlin spike tied to a line. You don't say rope in the Navy, a thin line. He'd fire that air gun across, hit on the tanker, on the ship we're going to fuel, and the crew hurries up and grabs that. And that line is hooked to another line rope, which is a hawser. And that hawser is connected to the oil line. And so they pull that, that's a routine.
Wow.
Now, we were fueling one time the destroyer, and the sea was a little bit rough,
Mm-hmm.
and our guys got the hose over or something, and they'll have a signal to start pumping. One of our guys got it wrong and started pumping a little bit, and the oil went on that destroyer. And were those guys mad on that destroyer? They were really. It was, well, it just happened. Mistakes happen. Yeah. But when we were, Hokkaido is the northern island, and it was getting towards, was it before Okinawa or, must have been, anyway, that's a long ways to go.
Mhm.
It takes 2 weeks to go up there from Ulysses, 2 weeks or more. And we were within 100 miles of it, and the carriers were bombing the railroads and factories in the northern Hokkaido. Well, anyway, we did fuel the ships, but somehow, if a destroyer was left behind or something, I heard that the destroyer could go to the after part of the carrier, and there would be a hose strung out where it could get temporarily fuel, because it would never have enough fuel to get back. That has happened where a carrier could fuel a destroyer that was miles, hundreds and hundreds of miles, that was somehow missed out on getting refueled out.
Huh.
That's a Navy goof off or something, I don't know, but I seen pictures where the destroyer would be at the stern of the carrier, and they would have a line first out, they could rescue it, in other words. There's instances every day that untold stuff, so many things, here and there and everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, the worst thing was, we were in enemy territory. The worst thing was a typhoon.
Halsey's typhoon?
We had a typhoon. Wasn't a typhoon for 3 days. You had to wear your life jacket all times, 24 hours a day. For 3 days it was real bad. The 5th day it was okay, but that was worse than wartime. I mean, to me, that was scary, because your ship not only would rock, but it was roll from side to side. Some guys got seasick, but I think maybe if you're seasick once, you don't get seasick again. I don't know, but I wasn't seasick. Well, you didn't eat much, and the chow hall, the tables and the benches were all lashed against the side. If you wanted to eat, you'd have to go take what you wanted to eat and eat standing up. But that typhoon was scary. We had a list. A destroyer had a list of 70 degrees. If it goes over 70, it's going over. We had a list of 39 from side to side.
Oh, wow.
And that was a lot for a tanker ship. That's how bad it was. And the waves were coming over the bow and all that for 3 days. I don't know how, and the 4 destroyers, sometimes you didn't see them because of the waves.
Mm-hmm.
That was more scary than the war. To me, it was. You didn't know what, if you'd go down. But many guys don't talk about it, maybe. But I never bring it up when we'd go to Navy ships reunions. We'd go to Austin, Texas. We'd go to Sacramento, California. Someone would host, and we would go to, and we didn't talk much about stuff. They talked about their families or their work and stuff, but once in a while it would come up. And there was a newsreel of our ship, wartime, that someone brought, and our ship was on, and, But here, that's me there, if you can see all right. And there's the ship.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I did see that newsreel you're talking about of your ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Huh. Where were you when the atomic bombs were dropped?
We were at sea.
Were you going to a certain island?
Somewhere out of it. Yeah.
How did you feel about it?
Well, it was sort of a numbness like. I mean, I really remember it wasn't that big a news. I mean, a bomb's a bomb, you know. You hear about it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, here's a flag mast that had the flags up here, and here's the pilots. But they,
So you were 18 in this photo?
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. That's when it was decommissioned. I mean, sold for scrap. And it went to Taipei shipyards in Taiwan,
Well, I haven't seen like these type of photos of the Sabine. I mean, there's photos you can find of the Sabine, but
Well, that's where, after the ship was decommissioned, it was in James River, in Virginia.
October 10th, 1944. Were these some of the people? Oh, those are commanding officers.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Our officer was Hans Christian von Wein. You know, they only keep him for about 2 years on the ship. And then they changed captains.
Oh yeah, the Enterprise.
When Doolittle had those planes that bombed during the war, there's our ship, the Sabine and the Cimarron. It was in that with the carriers. Yeah.
This is right here?
Yeah, then the next one is Cimarron, then there's a destroyer escort.
Wow, that's amazing. 45, 46.
This is fueling at sea, and there'd be 6 or 8 guys in sick bay with ribs injured and things when there was this pretty rough water, but they had to fuel anyway. I then went to Shanghai after the war. I was in Shanghai for 3.5 months.
How were the people there?
Okay, they were all right.
They were nice?
Yeah. They'd sort of keep out of your way. After the war, I took pictures. These are the signalmen here. And this is a guy, radio man. I used to go on Liberty with him a lot. And when we were at Okinawa, in the islands, you know, when the Japs were, and in this Karamaretto, it wasn't occupied. There was still Japs enemy there, but we didn't go in there to push them out. We anchored anyway, but they would have to have guys in the boats to patrol the area because one time a Japanese would come and get up the anchor, swim out there. So we put a guard with a rifle there.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
And then took pictures. That's me there again.
Oh.
I got to go home on leave in December 1944, and my mom wanted my picture taken. So I had 2 birthdays, 18 and 19, on that ship.
Oh, wow.
I mean 19 and 20. 19 and 20. That's me there. And here. This, I wasn't doing that just to fooling around.
Are those 20 millimeters? Or are those 40 millimeters?
40, I believe, yeah. We had 40 and 20 millimeters.
So you filled Bunker Hill.
Yeah, all of those, yeah.
Wow. I interviewed a guy last year who his ship was the first to get to the ship after it was kamikaze.
You know, one of the carriers, when we were fueling, you could see the open on the side, and on the other side was another opening, and they had five of them that they buried. They had the flags draped, and they while we were fueling, they buried 5 guys. Mm.
Oh, this is awesome. And this is Virginia, North Carolina, but
Yeah, my wife and we took a trip to Georgetown, or yeah, all those. That's in Shanghai.
Oh, cool.
I wasn't to all those places, the guys that gave them to me.
Huh.
But this, my brother was in, after the war in Germany, he gave me these German money. There's, I had, that's all Chinese stuff.
Oh, wow.
All they wanted was American money. They didn't like, they had different banks, and the banks weren't too strong there, and some of that wasn't worth much at all.
Wow, you. Wow.
That's all printed before World War II.
Wow.
We went to ship's reunion in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and they wanted to bring the ship up on display, but they couldn't get it. The water was too shallow, so they got different parts when they were dismantling it.
Mm-hmm.
The ship, when I left Shanghai and my points were up to come home, on the USS Buckner. We went from Shanghai up to Tsingtao to pick up more guys. Then they went up to Taipei, pick up more guys, and then we came back around the southern part of Korea to San Diego to 18 days. Went all the way to San Diego, from there went to the Great Lakes for discharge.
Oh yeah, I've seen this before.
When we were in Shanghai, there would be guys coming aboard, a couple Chinese to do some sewing for us. And on my pea coat in the inside, I had this guy put that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've seen.
They go in for stuff like that over there. And on my dress uniform, on the inside of the cuff, they would put stuff like that. It wasn't regulation, but nobody'd see it that way.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I got this from when we went to see the South Dakota.